In a quiet black church community outside Baton Rouge, the beloved choir director, Mr. Lionel Greer, is known for his golden voice and gentle spirit. But when a fire gets part of the church basement, investigators find a box of water-damaged personnel files, including a sealed juvenile record connected to a decades-old unsolved murder from Chicago. As pressure mounts, a young journalist from the local HBCU, Kara Jennings, follows the trail only to discover that Mr. Greer might not just be a reformed man with a dark past, but the key to exposing a corrupt youth detention program that buried dozens of violent cases under fake identities. As the community turns against itself, some defending him, others calling for justice, Kara must decide. Does redemption ever outweigh the right to know the truth? Before we uncover today's case, a quick reminder. If you haven't subscribed yet, now is the time. Hit that subscribe button and turn on the notification bell so you never miss a single clue, twist, or breakthrough in the stories to come. Now, let's dive into the case. The fire started just after midnight, slow and smoldering, crawling up the insulation behind the furnace in the basement of New Morning Baptist Church. No alarms, no witnesses. Just a faint, sweet burn in the air that didn't wake anyone until the smell reached the sanctuary. By the time the fire trucks came, most of the blaze had swallowed the old file cabinets. And when the smoke finally cleared, the waterlogged wreckage gave up something it wasn't supposed to. A locked tin box, rusted shut, hidden behind the maintenance sink. Inside, melted photo IDs, a crumpled manila envelope, and a single name stamped in faded red. L. Greer, Juvenile Transfer File, Chicago Correctional Authority, sealed. 3 days later, Kara Jennings adjusted her press badge as she waited on the church lawn, watching the congregation mill around in Sunday hats and linen suits. The fire had been small, barely enough to cancel service, but it had canceled the annual youth concert. That alone was enough to get people whispering. "Excuse me, ma'am," Kara said, stopping a choir member in a purple robe. "Do you know if Mr. Greer's here today?" The older woman blinked behind thick glasses. "Lionel? Baby, he led warm-ups this morning." Kara nodded, pretending to take notes. The lady didn't notice Kara's phone had been recording the whole time. It wasn't that Kara was suspicious. Not yet. But something was off. That file had been slipped to her anonymously left on the hood of her 2009 Corolla 2 nights ago in a gallon Ziploc bag, half-burnt, sealed with a single post-it note. Check page 3. Ask him about July 1993. Inside the church, the music was already swelling. Mr. Greer stood in front of the choir, tall and clean-cut in his gray 3-piece suit. His hands moved like a conductor guiding waves. His baritone solo pierced through the organ notes like honey over thunder. To anyone else, it was moving. To Kara, it was unnerving. He didn't look like someone hiding anything, but he didn't not look like it either. That night, Kara's apartment. She sat on her bed, files spread out like a broken puzzle across the comforter. Her roommate, Mia, popped her head in. "You still on that church fire thing?" Kara didn't look up. "It wasn't an accident," Mia scoffed. "Girl, you watch too much Dateline." Kara clicked her tongue. "Nah, something's buried here. And it's not just files." She picked up the half-burnt document again. The last line was smeared with water damage, but still legible. "Transferred to Hope Ridge Reform Academy, July 14, 1993. Case sealed under Order 27C. Hope Ridge," Kara murmured, typing it into her laptop. She waited. Nothing. No official site. No map listings. But one Reddit thread popped up. Anyone else remember how kids disappeared at Hope Ridge? Her finger froze above the trackpad. The next morning, New Morning Baptist Church. Kara returned early, before Sunday school, pretending to help set up folding chairs. Mr. Greer was tuning the church piano, humming to himself. His fingers, long and steady, moved across the keys like he was talking to them. Kara approached slowly. "Mr. Greer?" He looked up, eyes warm but measured. "Hey there, Kara. You doing one of your articles on us again?" She smiled tightly. "Something like that." He motioned to the seat next to him. "Well, you caught me early. I'm not at my best before 9 a.m. and 3 cups of coffee." Kara sat, heart tapping faster than the ticking of the metronome on the piano. "I found something in the ashes," she said. He paused. "In the basement," she added. "Some old files. With your name on them." Lionel didn't blink. Just gave her a polite, practiced smile. "Is that right?" Kara leaned forward. "What happened in Chicago in July 1993? The silence between them stretched out like wet rope. Lionel Greer exhaled slowly, his hands resting on the ivory keys like they were suddenly too heavy. His expression didn't crack, but his posture changed just enough for Kara to notice. "You ever find something you wish you could unsee, Miss Jennings?" he asked, voice steady, smooth, not quite friendly anymore. Kara didn't answer. She didn't need to. "I did what I had to do," he said quietly. "Back then." Kara's pulse quickened. "You're not denying it." Greer gave a quiet chuckle, something dry and tight. "You didn't even ask me what it is yet." She blinked. "You came in here with an assumption," he said, folding his hands together. "Maybe it's right. Maybe it's not. But you didn't ask." She reached into her bag and pulled out a photocopy of the water-stained file. "Did you go to Hope Ridge Reform Academy in 1993? He looked at the paper, looked through it, then stood up. "Some questions don't come with clean answers, Kara," he said, walking past her. "And some records stay sealed for a reason." Monday, University Campus Library. Kara sat hunched over a microfilm reader in the Special Collections room, flipping through archived newspapers from the summer of 1993. Her laptop screen had 6 tabs open. Juvenile Correctional Facilities in Illinois Chicago Tribune Archives. Missing Youth Reports from 1992 to 1994. Reddit Conspiracy Forums on Hope Ridge. A half-finished draft titled The Choir Director's Shadow. And an incognito tab with a private message thread from someone named Burnt Page 93. "I saw what they did at Hope Ridge. If you really want to know, check the Cook County Court remands. Room 4C. Look for initials LG." Kara had already cross-checked court records under those initials. She found 3 cases, but only one with a sealed file stamp that matched the same date, July 14, 1993. Case 27C. Exactly what the note had said. But the kid in the case wasn't listed as Lionel Greer. The name on the docket was Lamar Griggs. Tuesday, Baton Rouge Courthouse Records Office. Detective Jalen Brooks sipped black coffee and narrowed his eyes at the case number Kara slid across the desk. "You do realize I'm not obligated to give you access to sealed juvenile records, right?" Kara leaned in. "I'm not asking for the sealed part. I just need to know if that name was ever legally changed in Louisiana." Brooks leaned back, giving her a long, skeptical stare. He was used to students pushing boundaries. But this one? She had steel behind her eyes. He sighed, pulled up the database, and typed in the old case file. "Lamar Griggs." He mumbled, A few clicks later, he grunted. "Well, I'll be damned. What?" Name was changed in 1998. Court order processed through a private adoption lawyer. Became Lionel Greer shortly after. Moved to Baton Rouge under state juvenile transition program. Name wiped from the old registry. Kara blinked. So, he was Lamar Griggs. Brooks looked at her over the rim of his cup. Whatever he was, that man's record was buried deep, deeper than most. Later that evening, church parking lot. Kara waited in her car, hidden 2 rows back under a dying street lamp. Her phone buzzed. Another message from burnt page 93. You're close. But Greer didn't act alone. Search the Hope Ridge closures. Look for who ran it. The cover-up starts at the top. As she tapped back a response, the side door of the church opened. Mr. Greer stepped out, walking slowly, his gait tense, no longer relaxed. He didn't get in his car. Instead, he crossed the street into the dark alley behind the food pantry building. Kara grabbed her phone, slid out of the car, and followed. Behind the pantry. The alley was tight, lined with peeling brick walls and the distant drip of a leaking gutter. Kara kept her distance, staying in the shadows. Greer stopped near a dumpster, looked around, and pulled out a thick manila envelope from under a loose panel in the wall. He flipped through it quickly, then shoved it into a different trash bag and dropped it behind the bin. Kara caught a glimpse of one paper's heading as the streetlight flickered. Hope Ridge Employee Records 1992. She pulled out her phone to snap a photo, but a voice behind her made her freeze. You shouldn't be here, Kara. It wasn't Greer. It was Pastor Elijah Miles. His hand was resting calmly on her shoulder, but the pressure behind it was unmistakable. You're playing with fires older than you, he said softly. And if you're not careful, they'll burn you down too. Kara didn't move. Pastor Elijah's hand was light, but his presence was heavy like a father catching you somewhere you shouldn't be. The alley felt colder now, the damp air pressing down around them. I'm not trying to hurt anyone, Kara said, slowly turning to face him. The pastor's gaze was steady, unreadable. His gray beard caught the flicker of the faulty street lamp. I believe you, he said softly. But hurt and truth often walk the same path. Doesn't mean you should follow it blind. Kara's breath was shallow. Mr. Greer isn't who he says he is. There's a sealed record, an alias. And now this, she gestured toward the trash bag behind the bin. Hope Ridge. That place, ... It wasn't just a reform school. Something darker happened there. Elijah's face didn't change, not even a flinch. She pressed on. Did you know about his past? He looked away briefly, then back to her. I knew the man who walked into this church 23 years ago, begging to start over. I knew the talent in his voice, the sorrow in his eyes, and the burden he never once tried to unload on another soul. So you did know, Kara whispered. He nodded once. But you buried it. Pastor Elijah's voice dropped. I protected someone who was already trying to redeem himself, while this city ignored a generation of boys thrown to the wolves. Kara, you're young. You think truth fixes things. Sometimes it doesn't. Sometimes it just breaks people who've already been broken enough. She swallowed, anger rising behind her ribs. So what? You decided the community didn't need to know? I decided we needed a choir director, he said flatly. Not another mugshot on a screen. Not another black man judged by a page instead of a lifetime. Back at Kara's apartment, she paced in the dark, lit only by the glow of her laptop. The scanned copy of Greer's file sat open, side by side with a grainy news article she'd finally unearthed. August 2nd, 1993. 17-year-old found dead behind Hope Ridge Gymnasium. Authorities ruled it an accidental fall. No charges filed. Name withheld. Another Reddit post added fuel to her suspicion. My cousin was at Hope Ridge. Said a kid named Lamar was there during the incident. Disappeared after that night. Kara stared at the screen. Her hands trembled. The sealed file mentioned a disciplinary altercation on July 14, 1993, followed by transfer. The article dated August 2nd. Something was off. Greer was gone before the death. So what was he hiding? And why was his name scrubbed from everything? Her inbox pinged again. Burnt page 93. You're not looking deep enough. Find out who ran Hope Ridge's board in 1993. Search the name. Reverend Elijah Miles, Sr. Kara blinked. Reverend Elijah Miles ... Sr. Wednesday, Parish Hall Archives Room. The small side room at New Morning Baptist had once been a coat closet. Now it stored faded church bulletins, ledger books, and boxes labeled with masking tape. Kara worked quickly, aware that if anyone caught her inside without permission, she'd be out of favors. She flipped open a heavy black binder titled Church Sponsorships, 1989 to 1994. Inside were receipts, letters, and board rosters. She turned the page and stopped. Hope Ridge Youth Rehabilitation Board of Trustees. Chairman, Reverend Elijah Miles Sr., and just below it, scribbled in blue ink, Administrator Recommendation, New Hire, Lamar Griggs, Youth Peer Monitor. She sat down hard. Greer wasn't just a resident. He worked there. Maybe not officially, maybe not paid, but someone had vouched for him. Someone had placed him in that system, the pastor's father, which meant Lionel Greer wasn't the only one with something to hide. That night, church grounds again. Kara waited until after the midweek service. Rain had started to drizzle, just enough to clear the courtyard. She spotted Pastor Elijah locking the side entrance, umbrella in hand. She stepped out from behind the pillar. "You never told me your father ran Hope Ridge." He stopped. Didn't look surprised. "He did," Elijah said. "And I haven't spoken his name in this church since the day he died." "Why?" "Because I was ashamed of what he built." Kara stepped closer. "Then why protect Greer? Why not tell the truth about what your father did?" Elijah finally turned to her, eyes tired. "Because my father made monsters and Greer wasn't one of them. He survived them. I owed him that much." Kara stared at him. What happened to the boy who died in August? The rain was louder now. Elijah's jaw tightened. "I don't know." "Do you believe Greer killed him?" Elijah hesitated. "I believe ... Lar wasn't the one holding the bat." Elsewhere in the city, Motel 7 off Airline Highway. A man sat hunched over a motel desk, watching Kara's blog through a cracked phone screen. She had posted nothing yet, but her draft headline showed up through cached preview. Choir director sealed pass tied to reform school deaths. The man scratched his beard, reached into his duffel bag. He pulled out a faded ID card. Hope Ridge staff. Name, Marcus N. Graves. Position, disciplinary lead. He stared at the photo, then at the Glock beside it. 2 days later, Baton Rouge Public Library, research room. Kara's fingers hovered over her keyboard. Her draft was nearly done, over 6,000 words, tracing every thread of the Hope Ridge scandal, from Greer's sealed file to Reverend Elijah Miles Sr.'s dark legacy. She had copies of everything. The Borg rosters, the Reform Academy ledger, the death certificate of Trayvon Lockett, age 17, cause blunt force trauma, officially marked as a fall, and the church's own archived recommendation letter tying Lamar Griggs, now Lionel Greer, directly to the night staff on the week Trayvon died. She hadn't published yet, but the storm was coming. She looked down at her phone, where a new message from Burnt Page 93 lit the screen. "He knows you're writing it. He's on the move. Then, watch your back. Marcus Graves is still in town." Same day, Church Community Hall. The youth choir was rehearsing again for the rescheduled concert. Joyful voices rose like incense through the old building, echoing off stained glass windows and dusty pews. Mr. Greer stood behind the piano, but his eyes weren't on the music. They were watching the back entrance. He'd seen the man once already. A gray hoodie, a limp, circling the parking lot the night before. Greer knew that walk. He'd seen it dragging boys by the collar in 1993. Marcus Graves, the ghost who never left Hope Ridge, the one with blood on his hands. And now he was here, outside, that evening. Kara's breath caught as she stepped out of the library. Her car sat across the street under flickering lights, but something felt wrong. A gray hoodie disappeared around the corner. She ducked back into the shadows, dialing Detective Brooks with shaking hands. Voicemail. Her eyes scanned the alley. No one, but the air felt tight. She turned back toward the street and walked straight into a wall of sweat and cigarette smoke. Ms. Jennings? Marcus Graves was taller than she imagined, thinner, eyes bloodshot and cold. "I heard you got a real interest in history," he said. She stepped back, fumbling for her phone. "Stay back. Funny how little girls like you always want to dig up stories. But not the whole thing. Not what really happened. You killed that boy," she said. "And Lionel, he took the blame to protect you." His face twitched. Lionel didn't protect nobody. He watched. He froze like a coward while I handled that mouthy little punk who thought he could fight back. That's what he does, watches. Then he walks away. Kara's voice barely came out. "Why now? Why are you here?" "Because you stirred up ghosts, girl," he growled. "And I don't like ghosts." Suddenly, from behind. "Step away from her, Marcus." Greer's voice. Calm, firm, deadly. He stood with his hands raised, no weapon. But his presence was sharper than any blade. Marcus laughed. "Well, look who grew a backbone. You don't get to keep haunting people. Not anymore." Graves pulled a knife. Kara gasped. But before he could lunge, Detective Brooks slammed into him from the side, pinning him hard against the wall. On the ground, Baton Rouge PD, the blade clattered. Kara stumbled back as Graves screamed, face pinned to the pavement, shouting nonsense about lies, betrayal, and payback. 1 week later, Sunday service. The church was full. Not because of the sermon, but because of the story. Kara had published it. She titled it simply, "The Choir Director Who Carried the Silence." It told everything. About Hope Ridge, about Trayvon, about the abuse, and about how one boy survived by becoming someone else. Mr. Greer didn't speak for 3 days after it dropped. He stepped down quietly, resigned from the choir, but today he sat in the third pew. Alone, head high. Pastor Elijah's sermon was shorter than usual. He closed his Bible, looked out at the room, and said, "Grace doesn't erase the past, but it lets us face it. It lets us stand beside the people we might have once walked past. And it lets us sing again, knowing we're not hiding anymore." He nodded toward the pew. "Brother Greer, would you lead us in one more hymn?" A quiet hush fell. Greer rose, walked to the front. The choir behind him didn't need a cue. They began softly, voices lifting with each word. He opened his mouth and sang, not to forget, not to escape, but to finally let it out. Ending. Final note from Kara's article. Some people wear silence like armor, others like a scar. But some, like Lionel Greer, carry it in their voice and teach us all how to listen when it finally breaks. If you felt something watching this, don't scroll past it. Because the next case is like this, it's already on its way. Somewhere. And the silence around it is already forming. This story wasn't about drama. It was about reality. About broken systems, blind spots, and decisions made too late. You don't need to be a detective to see the pattern. You just need to pay attention. So before it happens again, speak up. Ask the uncomfortable questions. Push for accountability. Don't wait for the cuffs or the body count. Your voice matters more than you know. Like, share, comment. Be part of the reason it doesn't happen again.